Come with me, my friends. I need to show you something. A couple of the strangest icicles I have yet encountered. I'm not entirely certain how they ended up horizontal, and now that they are melting, they are at nearly right angles. The others all look normal, but yeah, I thought you all might be interested.
Greetings. I am the doctor, and Dr. Tiny and I are going to do an experiment. Well, I suppose not really an experiment. It's one of these little toy crystal kits we got at the dollar store that claim that this is what will happen. But we rather think not. So, what we have here are our crystal starter and some rocks and, well, this little plastic heart that I've glued in here, and a stir stick and some hot water. Now, what the instructions tell you to do is to, heat and melt the crystals, on the stove, but the pan that you will use to heat the water and the crystals will no longer be food safe. And since I do not have a pan that I am willing to sacrifice, I am instead going to take hot water, pour it into a measuring cup, since the instructions say that this particular package wants 180 milliliters of water. I will pour that into a yogurt tub, and I will mix from there. So, step 1, I will take my hot water and fill this. Now, it's not going to be exact, but that looks like about 180 milliliters. And I will then pour that into my yogurt container. And with the crystals, the crystal starter, they want you to save back some of them to seed your crystals. So first, I will take say about 1/8, but I'm not 100% certain how much that would be. I will say that that is good enough. Now I will pour the rest of my crystals into my water in hopes that they melt. And they seem to have done so, but I will give that a bit of a stir. Thing is, the next step then is that I need to wait for this to come back down to room temperature. Welcome back. The solution has cooled somewhat, and Dr. Tiny and I will now begin the pouring. Make sure Dr. Tiny is set aside. I don't need him growing crystals. So I have my little set with the rocks. It came with this little plastic tray, but I decided to make my own little trays out of some lids that I am not using. So I need to carefully pour the liquid over my rocks. Okay. And then carefully, more easily over the heart. There we go. Now, I think I have a little too much liquid in there. It's really just being held by surface tension and hope. So I'm going to get Kleenex out of my pocket and just absorb some of that. Because I will want to move these to a shelf later. Alright, that should be safe. This I will just leave over here, and maybe it will grow crystals as well. Now the last step is to take the leftover crystals that are to... Oh, I want to get this out of the way. To take the crystals we saved back and sprinkle them on. To seed where our crystals will grow. I think I will put some on my Kleenex here, just to see what happens. And there we go. I will be putting my little crystal dishes off on the shelf for several days, and I will be taking photographs daily to document their growth. So I will see you again next week to see how this experiment turns out. Welcome back. Dr. Tiny and I have run our experiments. Ira, could you show the photographs? The crystals started growing rather quickly. Even within a few hours, there was a bit of a ridge on it, like moss growing. But something odd happened. Over time, the crystals on the rocks took on the appearance of perhaps, sugar that had been melted by water, while the crystals that were growing on the plastic heart were actually taking on their proper crystalline shape. And as you can see, they never quite reached the same standard as what the packaging showed. Because as you remember, this is the packaging, and this is what actually happened. Can we get some better photos of that up, please, Yara? Thank you. Well, I think I will simply dispose of the ones with the rocks in, because it didn't look very interesting. I'm going to see if Jester can find a way to preserve the heart one, because it ended up looking quite interesting. I'm thinking probably something to do with resin, but, well, that will be, that is more Jester's speciality and not mine. Another interesting thing that happened was, well, I wasn't entirely certain how to dispose of the leftover liquid, thinking that if I pour it down the sink, it will simply mess up my pipes. So I've been letting it evaporate. It hasn't quite yet. But, Ira again. Yes. As you can see, the stir stick also developed crystals, as well as a wooden block that I had also tossed in there to see what happened if the porous material, the wood, would wick up the liquid and make more interesting crystal formations. But again, it just has the melted sugar look. The other rocks I had put in was an experiment of what happens if I simply put, a substrate in the liquid without using any seed crystals. And while there is still a tiny bit of growth, it is not nearly as impressive as the one where there were, some seed crystals put on to, seed it. That has been our experiment with what is a children's toy. And actually, I did end up purchasing another kit from the same, same company, not to, advertise or anything, just to say that I found this particular experiment fun and want to do it again off camera, because that is actually how we live around here. It's, we don't just do things on camera. These are things that we actually enjoy. So I will be doing more of that later, and you may or may not see the results, because it is more for myself. But that was our fun with a $1.50 crystal set. And, well, I don't know if we really learned anything from it, but we got some interesting results. Until next time, stay hydrated.